Hi, welcome to another exciting episode of the Andre The Beast Crayton Show. Another exciting show and definitely another exciting guest. Imagine with me, if you will, being happily married, being a stay-home mom, having a great husband, and life seems to be pretty well. But on that path, we run into some, I won't call it health issues, but we want to get in the gym. We want to do something. We see something just ain't right. Maybe play with our kids long enough. Maybe we're tired. Health issues are starting to come up. And you had no experience in this at all. Then all of a sudden
None.
a light bulb
Yeah.
clicks. And you decide, you know what? I'm gonna change my mindset. I'm gonna do something different. Not only do I want to be a stay-home mom, I enjoy that, but I wanna do something for me that can basically resonate to the world and to my family as well. This young lady, all the way from Minnesota, has definitely put that beast mindset to action. If you follow her on social media, you see her pumping iron. She's giving nutritional information, but she's definitely talking about that strength and conditioning, which those that know I'm a professional, retired professional bodybuilder, personal trainer. I know what's that's like getting up every morning and hitting that iron and eating right and then trying to make our family do the same thing. So without further ado, let's welcome to the Andre the Beast Crayton Show, the one, the only. I call her Miss Erica V to the show. What's up, Erica?
Hello, Andre. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. I appreciate it.
Before we even get started, you have a beautiful last name, and I told you I wasn't going to mess that up. What's your last name?
Don't worry. Erica V is just fine. Even I butcher it sometimes, and I've been married to this man for 17 years. So Erica V is perfect.
Okay.
Absolutely perfect.
So you are happily married. You have two beautiful children, a boy and a girl, and you want to do something else outside of just being a stay home wife. After 11 plus years of that, plus 17 years of marriage, what was it like for you? But before we do that, that's the second question. Let's go back to the first question. The first question is tell the viewers who you are before you answer that question.
Absolutely. So I hate to say that I'm just a stay at home mom because I am a stay at home mom. And I'm one of the many warriors out there that can proudly say that we are stay-at-home moms. And that's one thing that I really wanted to say up front is that if you're a stay-at-home mom, you're powerful and you really can change the world. And you're doing that through your kids. Right. So I am a stay-at-home mom, but I'm also so many other things. So I'm a power lifter, I'm an amazing cook, I'm a business owner, I'm so many things. And I credit all that to the fact that I've taken the time to work on that mindset and know that every failure and every win has a lesson in it. And I've taken those lessons and I've applied it. And that's why I am where I am today. I came from nothing. I still say I'm nothing in a way, but I'm much more than
What
I
do
was
you
11 years
what do
ago.
you mean when you say you came from nothing? Elaborate on that a little bit.
Absolutely. So I'm a first generation college student for my family. I moved away when I was, how old is I? 18 years old. Moved to a different city where I knew no one. And I have been slowly building up from there. Just to say, my siblings still have not gone to college. I'm the only one that's done that. I'm the only one that's had children. So it's been coming from a really difficult background and very slowly over time, building and building and building on top of that.
When you say first, and congratulations being the first, it's always a lot of pressure when you're the first because what happens is you now set the bar. When I'm not saying that maybe there was not opportunities for individuals before you, we don't know what their situations are, so we just say maybe the opportunities wasn't there. They had to. Sometimes you got to deal with the hand that you've been dealt. And a lot of times that means you have limited resources and limited opportunities. You was able to take these opportunities and become the first. And with that first, it's like having a backpack. Everybody wants to get in there and expect you to do more and more. What was it like for you growing up? Because you mentioned something else here. You're the first to have children too. What was your family structure like?
So I come from a family that has four total children. My parents were married and they stayed married until I was about 16. And that's when they ended up getting divorced, which was fine. They needed to. Right. So, given that, I do have a lot of background in terms of like being in a family, but I think a lot of times and I don't want to go political, but in the current environment that we're in, it is a little bit more difficult to have children. So for me, I was sitting here and saying, okay, I've gone through college. I found a wonderful man. I married him. We're doing really well. We feel comfortable having children because we built up to that point, right? It wasn't like I graduated college, I got married right away, and then I had a child right away, right? It was this slow buildup, and that's something that I always will hold to heart in terms of where defines success is that slow buildup over time.
What was lacking in your family structure? Not the one that you created beautifully with your husband and your children, but what was the family dynamics that made it difficult? Because if you have siblings, they could have easily been the first. I mean, was this a cultural thing that, I call it the Cinderella story. And what I mean by that is we grew up in a society where the propaganda is based on stories. You get married, you marry your high school sweetheart, especially when it comes to a woman now. I'm not trying to be stereotypical.
Right.
That's
No,
what you
go.
was that's how the world was presented to you. You found that guy in high school, you usually married him. College was not even an option for most women. Stay home mom was the way to go, and you was lucky to some extent have that opportunity. But then there also came what we might call collateral damages because you're too young to even know what that is. You wind up fighting and mismanagement of money, the whole 9 yards. You being the first, what was different with your mindset versus your siblings?
So for my siblings, I feel like first seeing what I was doing put pressure on them, right? They felt then pressured to follow me. But a lot of times being presented with that pressure is too much too fast, right? So I'm able to handle quite a bit of pressure because I'm the oldest one. I've always felt that pressure. So I was, in a way, quick to handle that versus the siblings that were all younger than me. Maybe the pressure that I could handle was something that they couldn't handle, right? Or another thing that I would argue too was that they were thinking that, you know what, I have to go all or nothing,
Okay.
right? Versus me, I went to tech school and then I went to college. Like I took those baby steps into it,
Like,
and that was something they weren't open to doing. Yep.
what's the difference between them? And you're not mentioning any names or anything like that. What's the different trajectory that they have now? Are they still following the path of least resistance and staying in that situation and maybe not want to have kids? I guess because they don't want to put the pressure on them that was probably put on them. What's your take on that? You know this better than I do.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think that's valid, right? To say like, they don't want to put pressure on others, which I do get that from one of my siblings specifically. But in terms of where they are right now, they're very comfortable being where they are. But in terms of overall trajectory, in terms of retirement, I'm going to be much more comfortable versus them, right? Because they're going to be working until they're God knows how old, right? Versus for us, we built something that we can look forward to something when we're a little bit older.
You mentioned something, they're going to be uncomfortable. And we hear this so often. What exactly is comfortable and what is uncomfortable? I'm asking you that.
That's okay. And I think that's a very personal question too, because what I feel like is comfortable may be extremely uncomfortable for someone else. But for me personally, having a roof over my head and having food in the fridge and knowing that my kids are set up for their futures, that is where I'm comfortable. And that's something that we're aiming for as a couple to make sure that that happens for them.
You mentioned with a chickle, with a little laughter about your mother and father separating or getting a divorce, and you said that had to happen. Without going too deep, not getting too personal because that's your mom and dad, but you smiled about it. So you was probably rooting, hey, this needs to happen. What was it that was happening that you say that was such, hey, that was the best thing for them to do?
I would say it's the best thing for them to do because as a child, and I was pretty old at that time, so I can see what was happening. And for me, I've always rooted for everyone being happy in their own space, right? So if you see your mother or your father walking into the house and they automatically like take a breath, right? Or they start to brace for something, you know that they're not feeling comfortable. And that in turn creates tension through the whole household, then too, because all the kids feel it. So when they decided to do that, I was incredibly sad at first because it's like, how could you throw that away? But at the same time, I'm like, I'm hoping that they're both now happier, knowing that they won't walk into their house and have that sense of tension when they walk in.
Let me ask you a question. Based on your trajectory, let's go back a minute. And I'm trying to lay a foundation. I may be laying a foundation here. Do you think, I know you kept communication with both parents, I would hope. Do
Yes.
you think that their level of comfortability became unbearable for them because now they have children, and probably did they have pressures put on them as well? Is what I'm asking.
I think just by being a parent, you have pressure put on you,
Mhm.
right? And they had four. So that's a ton of pressure to be holding on to because not only are your children putting pressure on you, but as a married couple, you're also putting pressure on each other, right? Because you're both learning and growing as beings,
Was
right?
your was your mom a stay-home mother?
She was for a long time, a very long time.
You sound sad when you said that. Was it because she had
Well,
dreams, ambition?
I think, okay, so if we really want to dig into the stay at home mom idea, the biggest reason why I didn't become a stay at home mom right away is because of my mom.
That's where I'm
And I
trying to
saw
go.
where she ended up by doing that, right? She was a stay at home mom. She's a wonderful person. Love my mom, right? But every stay at home mom has to make a sacrifice in order to do that. And she stayed home way longer than I would have ever done,
Why you
right?
say that? Why you say that, and what is too long? What is way too
It's
long?
nothing wrong. It's just that's a long time to put yourself on the back burner,
Okay. What was your
right?
mom's dreams and ambitions? Did she have any? Did she share it with you guys when you got
She
older?
never shared that with me. She never shared. I mean, the one thing that she did want to do was travel more,
Mhm,
which now she's doing,
mhm.
which I'm grateful for that she has the opportunity to do now. But it was something that she wanted to do when she was younger. Yep.
When you say she stayed on the put it on the back burner way too long, elaborate on that. Because being a stay-home mom isn't, you're in it for the long haul until your kids are grown, or I don't know the rules of engagement. I'm thinking the rules of engagement when your children are grown and successful, then you no longer have to be on the back burner. But isn't that part of the so-called contract of being a stay-home mom?
Yes and no, right? Because as women, like I went to college and I expected to have a career and I expected to excel in that career. That was my dream. But I went to college, I had a career, got married, then all of a sudden I can no longer focus on that career. And for a lot of women, that's hard. That can be incredibly hard. And because you're kind of throwing away one dream, and yes, you're going for another, which is fantastic. And I never will throw that time away ever. But initially, it is hard because you're changing from a professional woman to being something else, right? And for many women, and I struggled with this too initially, it's incredibly difficult to go through that. It really, really is. And now that my kids are older, I'm able to look back and go, well, thank goodness I was home because I can see how that helped them grow into the people that they are right now. Because I did do that. But initially it's hard to see that. And it's that transition point that's so difficult. So difficult.
But isn't, I don't think there's a manual script for being a mom or a full-time mom or a full-time dad. I think you learn as you go. Things happen. Children, they crawl. They go from diapers to going to their first school to, it is a full-time job. But my question to you is, you said your mom stayed in it way too long. Do you mean the fact that you wish that she had to pursue something else besides being a mom at that time is what you're trying to say?
Yeah, I do wish that she did pursue something else, especially since I was older and my other siblings have gotten a little bit older. And that's something that I'm trying to do now. So my kids are still relatively young, right? On the spectrum of youth, you're still relatively young, right? But I'm trying to find a way to still be what I need to be for them, but do something on the side for myself. And that's when I started my Instagram. That's when I started doing what I'm doing. So that way I can start to give to myself and give to others in a different way.
Isn't it a different projected trajectory when you're a single mom? And I mean single stay-home mom, no male there, or a single father, because that's call it what it is, there's single fathers out there. The trajectory and the outlook is never going to be the same. It's going to be much more of a difficult task. So my question to you is, I get it during the time that your mom and dad was probably being parents, opportunities and stuff, maybe their mindset, which we talked about, their mindset wasn't there. But let's talk about a new generation, a new time. What's your take on the single mom and the single stay home dad who don't have that other support cast? I mean, how do you really put that in your time zone to do these things when, let's be real, children are a handful? They come with a lot of care. They don't come with instructions, you gotta deal with it.
No, and to those people, I bow down to you because it's incredibly difficult to do that alone. And I will never have a full perspective on that because so far, knock on wood, I haven't been put in that situation. But the people that do it, you are way flipping stronger than I am. You really and truly are. And the people that I run into in real life that are in that situation, I'm like, how can I help?
Mhm.
Right? Because that's amazing.
How are people perceiving your mission to advocate for being something much more than a let me rephrase this, elevating your situation as a stay-home mom to add more to it. How are you being perceived right now? Because you're going to have two different sides of the spectrum here. You have a mom that says, "Oh, she don't know what she's talking about. She's happily married. She's got blah blah blah. Blah blah blah. This is going on in my life right now. The government is doing this and taking this away, and I got a husband that's not even paying attention to me, and I'm doing all the work." How do you really address something like that? Because there's so many prizes in these boxes of Cracker Jacks.
No, and for that, it's so hard for again, it will be impossible for me to understand how difficult that situation is. Impossible. I will never even try. All I know is that those people, I hold them in high regard. Absolutely the highest regard ever. Now, in terms of elevating that, again, since I have no perspective, it's really hard for me to say do X, Y, and Z, right? But for the moms that are like me, that are in this kind of situation that I'm currently in, I'm out here trying to tell them, hey, there is another life beyond children, right? There is, you don't know, when your kids are older, you don't always have to put 100% of your time in them anymore. So then what do you do? And for a lot of women, they pause because for me, it's been 11 years. Who am I anymore? And a lot of women ask themselves that question at this time of life.
Who
So
were
I'm
you?
here to show
Who were you before
who was I before?
years ago?
So many, many, many years ago. I actually graduated from the University of Wisconsin Madison with an economics degree. I was fully expected to go into business. I moved to Minnesota because of a major company here paid for me to be here. And that was my trajectory at that time. And now it's completely different.
So when you got married, that's when the things changed?
Not right away. So we got married, waited 5 years to have children. The minute my son was born, that was it. Everything changed.
So you became a mother, reality set in. I mean, things had to changed. But then when did you lose yourself, and when did you take a look in the mirror and say, "What have I become?" Because naturally you want
That
to
would
be
be
a mom.
yeah, absolutely. And I feel like I am a good mom, but at the same time, I know I make mistakes. Right. And I know that I'm not the best mom in the world and I will never put that crown on my head because I make mistakes on the daily as a mom. But the time that was the hardest was after my daughter was born because that was the time that we decided that I would be home and that would be it. Right. So I left my job, had my daughter, and then that was it.
Who decided this? You and your husband together?
Correct. Yeah. We sat down, we talked about it.
What was the reasons that what was the thing that you talked about that made you decide to route?
Yeah. So, number one, biggest concern, and I know this sounds terrible, but it's finances. So, the amount of money that we were paying for childcare for my son was almost half of my salary. Right. So, you multiply that by two. What am I working for anymore?
You're working to
Right.
pay
And
for
then
your
that,
child. Yeah.
right. And then that translated to, okay, I'm working for someone else to raise my children. Right. What's the point of that? So, that's why we decided that it's best for me to stay home at that point.
I think that's good for people to hear because that is a major crippling factor in making the decision. Childcare. I was fortunate when I raised my daughter that even when I went back to college, which they even provided daycare there. And my daughter went to class with me a lot of times. I was like, man, this is like really cool. And I get it. You really want to be in those formative years. You really want to be really there with your children. And then what happens is you get immersed in watching them evolve, from elementary to whatever and going out to college. You actually become part of that beautiful painting. So it's kind of hard to do that. How do you think your life is going to change now? Because your kids are at that middle part, and it's funny to say they need more attention now because this is what happens is that peer pressure. Football games, soccer, proms, boyfriends, girlfriends, first crushes. You know, you're going to be all over the place.
Am all over the place now. So thank you for scaring me for the future because it will only get worse. So yes, I'm also a taxi driver. I've been promoted to taxi driver. That's what I tell myself. I often joke that I'm going to put a tip jar in my car because I drive my kids everywhere. But yes, they still very much need me now. So my son does do football. My daughter does gymnastics. My daughter's incredibly social. Holy crap. She is going everywhere all the time. My son's more into video games, so that's more patrolling in a different way, but they still very much need me, right? But again, it's that weird transition point that they need me less and less and less. And being okay with that is really important. It really, really is.
When did you decide to implement strength and fitness into your regimen? Why was that so major for you out of everything else you could have done? You got your college degree, but what sparked the strength training and the fitness routines?
Absolutely. And that's a great question. I can talk about this forever too. So, when I was about 37, I started to notice differences in my body and in my mind, and I couldn't explain it. I was like, what's going on? Right. So, a friend of mine said, okay, I'm at that age group too. I'm feeling the same way. There's all these studies that say how good strength training is. Let's just go. And I said, sure. Right. What am I going to pay by trying? Right. So, I started with body pump, group cycle. I was a group cyclist for a little while. And I started to see the mental and physical benefits of doing that type of thing. And that's what really started to spike the fire for me to say, okay, what more can I do? I want to continue to get stronger. I want to continue to feel better physically and mentally. And what can I do to do that? And that's when I started getting into powerlifting specifically.
You mentioned something before we wrap up. You mentioned something, and I 100% agree with that. I've been an athlete pretty much all my life. I know what it's like to get up and get to the gym. I know what exercising and basically strength training, especially with women. Women need to strength train. Powerlifting is cool too, but I'm more like, okay, you need to. You still want to be a female. I don't mind strength, but yeah, I agree. You need all of that. How bad was your mental getting before you started to get into the gym?
It was pretty bad. And I would love to go back and slap myself at the very beginning. So let me just say the one biggest regret I have when I started this, and I will hate myself forever for not doing this, is I did not take progress pictures at the beginning because my mindset was so bad. I said, nothing's going to happen. I don't care.
Wow.
Right. And
Yeah.
now I look at it today and I'm like, holy crap, I was so dumb. I doubted myself to the point that I didn't even do something as simple as that.
What about your husband? Men usually stay quiet when it comes to answering questions with women and their appearance. It's on their mindset. We kind of just, don't say too much. What was he saying? And when you got into the weight training, when you started to change, did he come forward and say, "You know what? I saw you needed this, but maybe I should have spoke up earlier." What was that like for you? Because you're married.
Yes, I'm very much married. My husband's actually very vocal about what I look like. But at the beginning, he was super patient because he said, I know you've had children. I know it's going to change, but I'm hoping that when you feel comfortable, that you look forward to finding a way to be physical again. That's basically what he said to me. And I said, okay. And so when I started strength training, he said right away, you look fabulous, right? I can tell the difference in you. You look fabulous. Now, when I started lifting heavy, that was the point that he told me, maybe you're going a little too far. And that's the dynamic that we're in right now of me saying, I love this and I'm never going to stop. And him saying, don't go too far. And so that's our current balancing act
Why
that
do you
we're
think
playing
he's
right now.
asking you? Why do you think he's asking you not to go too far? I'm just curious.
No, that's okay. So I think he sees a lot of women that are incredibly buff, that are on Lord knows what, that are incredibly buff, right? And he thinks I'm going to turn into this big buff lady. And I don't think he understands how hard it is to do that, right? So he'll be fine. Don't worry.
Where do you go from here? Where do you go now? Where do you go now?
I'm hoping my voice gets louder and louder and louder because I'm not the only woman that that will benefit from this, that needs to have a voice to say, you know what, you've been home for how long? There's still an end, there's still life, there's still a part of you that's there.
You
But
you
how
mu-
can you find? Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
you must be speaking from experience, and what I mean by that is other women must have been talking to you in your ear for you to come on this show and talk about this. So this isn't an isolated situation. This may be worldwide. There's other women that feel the way you do, and men that feel the way you do. That they
Absolutely. And I love that you said men because that's something I've been trying to be really good about including both because this is not just isolated to women. It's isolated. I mean, it's part of men too. Right. And so I'm trying to be very vocal about the fact that, you know what, strength training can benefit anyone. And it doesn't have to be powerlifting. I've told people that a million times. It does not need to be powerlifting, but strength training of some form.
How long have you been strength training?
I've been strength training since let's see, 2002.
And how long did it take you to start seeing progress? And the reason that I'm asking is as a former trainer, I used to tell women and men, you develop differently. Men's going to see results a lot quicker than women. And I used to tell women if you give yourself at least 3 days a week to 4 days a week of 30 minutes of strength training, you should and eating because eating is key. You are what you put in. You should start seeing results within the first 30 days. It'd be minute things. How did that happen with you?
It was the same. So in 30 days, I was starting to get stronger right away. And for me personally, I like to see results outside of the scale. So I like to say, okay, if I'm able to lift heavier, that's a result, right? If I'm able to go longer, that's a result, right? And those are those quote unquote minute changes that you see right away. But it took years for me to get where I am today physically. And that's because of my history. So prior to strength training, I was a cyclist and I would cycle 50 plus miles a day. Not to say that's bad. I love it. I'm still a cardio junkie on the inside, but I had to quote unquote heal from that. And that's why it took me so long to get where I am right now, here and today.
The last question I ask, we see that your body is getting its workout. Let's talk about your mindset because you went into these situations with that negative, you was defeated attitude before you even complete the mission. What's your attitude now? What's your mindset?
My mindset right now, I would say it's the strongest it's ever been. For real. Coming on here and talking to you, coming in cold, I would have never done that before. Walking into a competition, and I bombed my first competition. Let me say that. I bombed it completely. I failed, but I completed it. And that's the big difference. And I never would have done that 11 years ago. Ever
When you
would I
say,
have done that.
how did you bomb your first powerlifting contest?
Oh God, it was so bad. So squats, I got green lights. Bench, I got a green light. Deadlifts, red light across the board. And that meant that I was disqualified. From my first meet, I was disqualified,
So what do
right?
you do
But
now?
you know what? No, but let me wait. My kids watched me fail on YouTube. It was incredibly embarrassing. They watched me do it. But you know what I'm proud of myself for? They saw their mom stand on that podium 3 times and fail 3 times. The fact that I stood on that podium the third time in front of my kids, imagine how powerful that is.
How did you change your mindset after that?
Well, I'm hoping to compete again, but
Okay.
it took me some time. It really, so I did a mock meet, what's called a mock meet in my house as part of that healing process. Now that I've done that, I'm hoping to compete again in the spring.
And you know what? You will definitely do that this spring. I guarantee you, you will do better than you've ever done in your life. I can sense that beast mentality coming out of you. How can the viewers reach out to you and support you and share in such a beautiful journey? Because I know there's other women and men that are going through this same scenario and would love to follow your story. How can they reach out to you?
Absolutely. So right now I'm putting most of my message on Instagram. So Erica Just Lift Training. I also have a Threads account as well where I'm very vocal. So put a little asterisk there on my threads. I'm very vocal there. But in terms of my Instagram, feel free to message me. You can also shoot me an email at info@liftshit.com. And you can always shoot me an email there as well.
You know, Erica, thank you so much for taking time out to come and share such a beautiful story of resilience and empowering not only women, but men that there's nothing wrong with being a stay home parent as long as you don't forget who you are in the process. Make sure you guys click follow. Sometimes all it takes is one click to make a difference in not only your life, but someone else's life. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been another, and I do mean another, exciting episode of Andre the Beast Crayton Show.